And thank you, Ensemble and Sophia, and thank you, my sister Cassandra. Uh, I was our partner in all things Black Women's Roundtable and more, and of course Ashanti, who has been on this battlefield as a quiet storm. So it is a joy to be on this call. It is a uh, breath of continuous fresh air as we started with a new era in this country on yesterday. So Melanie Campbell, President and CEO, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, and National Convener, Black Women's Roundtable. And one of my third hats that I wear, which is I chair the Power of the Ballot Action Fund, and also chair Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. 4 hats, 1 check. Everything else is volunteer.
Isn't that how it always happens?
That's how it happens.
Okay, we'll go on to Ashanti.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Ashanti Golar. I am the president of the Emerge Network. We recruit and train women to run for office. I am the founder of the Brown Girls Guide to Politics, which is a media platform that uplifts the voices of Black and Brown women in politics and encourages them to get civically engaged. And I think most importantly for this call, I am a Oxfam Sister on a Planet ambassador for the past 7 years. And I just have to shout out Sophia and Danielle and all of the amazing Black women that we get to work with, Cameron as well, who put these important and timely conversations together.
Thank you for raising that. I just became a Sister on a Planet this year, so I'm so excited about that work. All right, I'll turn it over to my sister from another mother, Cassandra.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be in y'all's space and your presence. I'm looking forward to this incredible conversation today. I am Cassandra Welchland, Executive Director of the Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable, one of the affiliates of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. I'm so happy to dive into this conversation with you all this morning. We got a lot of people on here from Mississippi, so I just want to shout out Mississippi and the South. So happy that y'all are joining us today. Back to you, Nishambi.
Thank you. So, we're going to hear some really good information today. So very excited to dive in. And Melanie, I'm going to come back to you. We've been talking a lot about the candidates the past 2 weeks, and only a little bit about the issues. And we want to focus on the issues today. So can you talk a little bit about those issues that are facing Black women at the ballot this year?
Yes, I can. But I just got to say that we got to pause for a minute and just know how significant yesterday was and is as we wake up on Monday morning and have this conversation. Because the truth of the matter is, it wasn't the issues that changed the Democratic Party ticket. It was who. And that did matter. I just want to take a moment to thank President Joe Biden for a lifetime of service. You talk about somebody who became an elected official, in his 20s, and here he was at 81, still working to serve. He put Black women, the kinds of commitments he made to Black women will impact our lives for decades and our children and children's lives for decades. One of those is putting the first Black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court, who will be able to, at some point, I believe, that things will shift, because they always do, to where you will have a more inclusive Supreme Court that will be able to either reverse some of the rights we've lost. So we'll talk about issues related to that. His appointment with having Sister Ketanji Brown Jackson on that Supreme Court that said one day we'll be able to get our voting rights restored permanently. I'm channeling future. the fact that you had an administration that put more Black women on the bench as well will have long-term implications about issues around justice and fairness in the judicial system. You're talking about administration that put the first Black woman, he chose the first woman, period, who has a African American and Asian descent as his vice president, and he kept his word that he picked a vice president. If he could not make it through the finish line, he was going to be able to choose her, recommend her, and endorse her. And I'm not being partisan, just facts about history, because it is a moment. It is a seismic, transformational moment, no matter what happens. The second woman to be able to make it, possibly if she gets through the nomination process for the national party, to be able to run for national office. This country has never had a woman president, but we have had a Black woman, and we've had a woman, South Asian woman, as vice president. So as women, that will make sure that at some point it'll be normal. Wouldn't that be something? So that's kind of like my initial thinking about it. And it is a moment where we talk issues, we're talking about there's a binary choice that we're going to have to make as a country about whether or not we want to have a democracy. It's not conjecture. It's not being overly paranoid. It's people are letting us know what they want. Either we're going to have a democracy where as flawed as it may be, or we may end up with an autocracy and a ruling class that rules this nation. That keeps me up at night. I don't know about you, right? You want to make sure that we know that issues around economic justice are definitely on the ballot, right? And to be able to know that we still have, as we sit here, I'm a daughter of the South. People don't want to say Florida's the South, but I think they know that more and more in the last few years that Florida is the South, where a lot is happening. Rolling back rights and freedoms and economic opportunity in this country. So opportunity around economics is on the ballot. Affordable, being able to close the wealth gap in this country, being able to reduce poverty in this country. Issues around women's rights and control of our bodies is on the ballot in this country. There's a lot at stake, and the gains that have been made because Black women showed up and turned out are also on the ballot. So a lot. So I'll stop there because I know my colleagues have much to say as well.
Yeah, Professor Campbell, you're definitely taking us to class this morning, but we need these lessons. And Ashanti, I want to come to you now because you work really hard to help Democratic women get in office.
Yeah.
And one of those barriers is often redistricting. And I want you to talk a little bit about that process coming from the South and how difficult it is in the South dealing with gerrymandering and having to wait on the back end because of Section 5 being gutted to prove that you've been discriminated against, whereas we used to have those protections on the front end.
Mm-hmm. So I am gonna piggyback off of Melanie, though. It is an exciting time. Vice President Harris is a co-founder of the Emerge Network. So it's exciting for us to see the fact that an Emerge woman is going to be the first president of the United States. And this is the work that we wake up and do every day. But I'm also proud to say that when I became the president of Emerge, I'm the first Black woman to lead our organization. We shifted to having a focus on the new American majority. So that's Black, Brown, and Indigenous women, women of color, young women, unmarried women, LGBTQ women. Basically, the women who have been fueling all of these great victories. We just don't want them to be voters. We want for them to put their name on the ballot. And having Vice President Harris be a co-founder of Emerge and inspiration for Emerge, she is the epitome of our vision. So that is an exciting moment for us, but we do know that there are really big issues. I think when we talk about gerrymandering, I'm clear about the fact that it's just another form of voter suppression because people know our power, that they have to change things, they have to eliminate things, put in all of these barriers to prevent us from actually exercising our power. And when we think about that in the context of Black women in particular, this country never anticipated our civic participation. We know that this country was built for straight white men who own land. They never thought that Black and brown people would participate, not that women would participate. And every time that we do that, what we're doing is we're shifting the table. We're shifting the power balance. So these are the things that they have to do basically to keep the status quo, because it only benefits them. And they know that when we have power, when we're in charge, we, especially as Black women, do things to benefit everybody. So when we're looking at gerrymandering in particular, we have to make sure that we're just educating ourselves on the issue and the things that we can do. We do have to be loud and vocal. We know that we're seeing so many of these issues going to state courts, to the Supreme Court, but that only happens when we get loud and we push back. And we tend to think that, okay, we can only take this to those leaders who think like us or share our values. Yes, those are the allies that we need, but we even need to push on those who we think may not be supportive of the issue. If we're talking about this in context of the election, it is not lost on me at all that we are going into another presidential election where we do not have the full protection of the Voting Rights Act. That's another way that we are going to just see things play out where they're limiting our right to vote. So when we're thinking about it, it is making sure that we're keeping focus on what is happening, especially in the South, but not giving up. Because when we're loud on it, when we're making sure that we're focusing on it, there is the way to shift that power imbalance. And we know we have seen that happen across several Southern states where have actually been able to get gerrymandering reversed.
That's absolutely right. And we've had a few local victories in Mississippi, and we just had one statewide victory. And hopefully we'll be able to get Congressman Thompson's district back to normal and get another good district in Mississippi as well. And speaking of Mississippi, it come down to my sister. And I'm just saying down because you're down on my screen, Sandra. So Cassandra, I've watched you fight for many, many years on the equal pay bill and trying to go before local bodies to talk about equal pay at the local level. And it never ceases to amaze me, the pushback that you continue to get when women in Mississippi make $7.25 an hour as a minimum wage. And, you have to actually bring people to the Capitol, and talk about working 3 and 4 jobs just to try to make rent and everything else on time. So can you talk a little bit about that battle and what that means to this election?
Yeah, absolutely. And just piggybacking on what Melanie has said and Ashanti has said, what occurred yesterday was so critical and so key. And I think what it did for me is to elevate all of the things that this administration has done to help elevate our economic security for families across this country and of course in the South. This administration actually cut the poverty rate, right, significantly when they implemented the child tax credit. That really cut the poverty rate in half. When they put all those infrastructure investments in, from childcare to the stimulus, all of those resources really did speak to people's kitchen tables. Like I always say, the policy tables should reflect people's kitchen tables. And this administration did an incredible job at really putting people first and not politics first. And so I also just want to applaud this administration for what they have done. And the data showed once the tax credits, people weren't able to access that, the poverty rate began to increase significantly, right? It went back. So we have to have policies in place that is holistic, that is intersectional, because we understand what you just said, Nishambi, that people are struggling in their kitchen tables, and particularly when you talk about a state like Mississippi and the South, where majority of Black folks are living, and also where you see significant economic oppressions. So just take right now in Mississippi, 8 out of 10 Black women are breadwinners of their families. And so what that means, and we just came off of the heels of Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Melanie, myself, several other organizations really try to focus and uplift still the importance of equal pay. And so Black women nationally are in Mississippi are still making, they're making 55 cents on the dollar, 55 cents on the dollar. We went down a penny. And so what that means is that we're still missing the rest of our money. And so over a 20-year, over a year, we are losing $20,000. And that could go towards childcare. That could go towards, rent. Again, we're still coming out of a pandemic. People haven't completely recovered from that. And so it is significant that we have good, sound policies in place that would help lift women out of poverty. And so you're right. Here in Mississippi, we passed a really bad equal pay bill. It is equal pay in name only. And so what that means is that we still have work to do. The minimum wage, is still $7.25, federally. And Mississippi has the will, to lift our, to increase wages and remove the sub minimum wage as well, where, waitresses won't make just $2.13. And again, that means people are having to hold down 1 and 2 jobs. These are the issues that's going to be on the ballot, right? And we need, an administration that really does, care about these issues. One thing I will say, and Melanie knows this, and Ashanti knows this, this, Nishambi. When Black women lead, we bring our entire families and our entire communities to that ballot box. To whatever we're doing, we bring our entire communities to that. We're not just thinking about just us, we're thinking about the whole. And so it's going to be really key and really important that we talk to people about these issues. And we know this is top of mind. I mean, we are with you all, Nishambi One Voice, we're holding Power the Sister Vote boot camps across the state of Mississippi. We have one coming up. And we've heard that these issues are really key and important. Healthcare, Mississippi still didn't pass healthcare, Medicaid expansion. And so there's a lot of work to do. And these are real kitchen table issues that still matter to people. And so we're going to continue to have conversations, but we have to educate and elect people that care about these kinds of issues.
That's exactly right, Cassandra. And, it's so important to educate and to dispel a lot of the myths that are out there about who's really concerned about your wallet day to day and who's really put money in your family's pocket and in your household. And I want to shift to you, Melanie. We were very excited yesterday with the big announcement. And, a couple of weeks ago, everyone was talking about the assassination attempt. And then, of course, yesterday we had more exciting news about potentially the first African-American woman to be president. And so, but we also know that there are some down ticket races also. And we try to encourage folks to stay engaged in the political process, whether it's federal election, all the way to school board member, all the way to dog catcher. So can you talk about what you're excited about, up ticket to down ticket this year?
Yes, ma'am. I think kind of a broader perspectives. I think the South is more in play now in this election. 24 hours later. Um, more than 60% of Black people live in the South. And we have a lot in the state of Mississippi to show the power and the potential of what can happen with statewide races in this country where we are 30, sometimes, higher percent of the vote. Not that we're monolithic, but we vote. We are strategic voters, and Black women who are the drivers of the Black vote. We are the influencers. We are the no longer secret sauce. I used to say secret sauce. It isn't. The secret's been out. So which is its own problem. Quite frankly, right? Coming forth is because it's about power, right? And we're in this moment where it's about what kind of who's going to control power in this country, which affects all of our lives. So I think that's one reality that I think the map changes has the potential, I will say, to change about leaving out a big segment of the nation from a federal level, but also statewide races. I think when you think about a lot of the shifting of states' rights, state legislatures, uh, who's in the governor's mansion matters more now than ever, because even on a local level, as we all know what you've been going through in Jackson as an example, Mississippi with the state can supersede what happens when mayors make great decisions, or what happens with city councils, what happens with school board races, what happens with what we can teach. So I think we have to be much more, and we don't vote as well down ballot when it's not a presidential election year. And so 24/7, 365, being engaged civically is something that has to become like getting up in the morning, hopefully brushing your teeth and putting on some deodorant. We've got to vote in every election. And so that's kind of where I think we have a window of opportunity to also point out in this election where I think people are going to show up, but we got to make sure that our people are has all the good information that they need, and to be able to connect those dots when it comes to power dynamics, and so that we can have some more long-term wins, not just electorally, but really lifting up our people, and fighting back on some of these state laws that are being passed. We look at, like you said, look at Washington, but states are passing draconian laws that are having adverse effects on our community.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. And last week, Mississippi got another bad ruling about our felony voting ban, that the Fifth Circuit threw it right back to us again. So, we'll be continuing that fight as well. And Ashanti, I want to come back to you because in addition to some felony voting bans and the gerrymandering issue that we discussed earlier, women face a number of additional barriers in running for office. Not to even mention some of our personal issues that we have to settle before we even make the decision. So you've trained over 6,000 women to run for office. Can you talk about that process and talk about maybe some tools that you provide when women are considering this very important decision?
Yes, absolutely. And I will piggyback off of Melanie again when she talked about how we need to be voting our whole ballot. When we put that in context, there's 520,000 elected offices in this country. So that means there are 520,000 people that get to shape our lives with a stroke of a pen. The majority of them are at the state and local level. And that is why Emerge concentrates the majority of our work there. We have trained 6,000 women to run for office. And what we do is we demystify the process of what it takes to run for office. I am very clear when speaking to women, especially Black women, we already have what it takes to run for office. Just think about today and all the things that you have done before you got to this webinar. Those are all the things that you need to be a great elected official, but being a great elected official is really being a great servant leader for your community. Because I know all of us are here, we're all about servant leadership. Through the Emerge program, we have seen so many great women get elected. We currently have over 1,200 of our alums serving in elected office at all levels, from cabinet secretaries to members of Congress, to state representatives, sheriffs, judges, school board, water board, and they are all making a difference. I love Congresswoman Amelia Sykes. She founded our Seated Together program. That is for Black women elected officials who want to run for higher office. That program is extremely important to us. It's a part of our Lift as We Climb strategy, because we don't believe that when women get in elected office that they have to bloom where they're planted. That is something the patriarchy likes to teach us. Oh, just be happy about where you're at. You had that. Wasn't that good? I mean, can we be honest? We're kind of hearing that about our vice president, right? Some people are like, you were VP, we can just get a whole new ticket. No, we take in everything. She's going to be the top of the ticket. And out of Seated Together, we are able to see Tamika Isaac Devine win a special election for state senate in South Carolina. And we know there's so much going on in South Carolina. So we were able to see her ascend to office. We got to talk about our courts. Before becoming the president of Emerge, I was the political director. And during that time, I really started honing in on our women in law enforcement positions, making sure that we had more women, especially Black women, running for judge, running for DA, running for attorney general, running for sheriff. We have 109 judges in the Emerge network who are serving right now. The majority of them are Black women. We can't talk about changing the criminal justice system without changing the faces of criminal justice reform. And we know that means we need more women, especially Black women, in these positions. And that is what they are doing. So what I say to the women on this call, first, I'm going to ask you to run for office because we need you. And you already have what it takes. Yes, the barriers are there, not going to lie. We hear these words all the time. Is she viable? Is she electable? I think those are just code for a straight white man with money who can self-fund. But the reality is, Black women, what we don't raise in money, we make up with shoe leather and a good message. And that is how Black women mainly get into office. And when they're there, we see them explode just like our vice president, going from DA to attorney general to United States Senator, vice president, now president. Please let the vice president be an example of everything that we as Black women can do in elected office. And our voices at the table make a difference. It's a difference between just having a democracy, but an inclusive democracy. That's what I want to have. People want to talk about a reflective democracy. No, I want an inclusive democracy where you have women, especially Black women from all walks of life serving. And at Emerge, we can give you those tools, the resources, and the skills that you need to run and win. And even if you're saying, well, Shanti, I don't know if I'm quite ready for that yet, we have Winning Leaders Emerge, which is our leadership development program. And we created that because there were so many women, especially Black women, that we saw as leaders, but they didn't see themselves as leaders. And that can be a whole conversation as to why, but we know that they can lead. So giving them that initial step before they run for office. So we have multiple programs at Emerge to serve Black women and get you ready for your leadership and in office and making and passing bills that are going to benefit everyone in our country.
I love that. What was that phrase? Good leather and...
Yeah, which you don't have the money, you make up for in good shoe leather and a good message.
Good shoe leather and a good... Okay, we're going to have to remember that one, Cassandra. Thank you. Oh, and Cassandra, I'm going to come to you quickly, and we're almost at time. We work together on election protection, and so usually that day after election, we're going back through our calls to see what the big trends were and to see, what we're going to continue to fight on the day after election. But what are some of those other things that we do in terms of the accountability factor and going back to see how we continue the fight so that people don't look at election the day after as a time to, okay, I put that person in, now I can go home and rest.
Yeah,
What does that look like?
so many good things was just said. I just kind of want to circle back around. One of the things Melanie said is that we have to do elections year round, and I think that's a value that all of us have, and a practice that we must engage people year round. They're living, and the issues are year round, whether that's childcare, whether that's going to work. All of those things are still really key to people, and so we have to keep talking to people. We just have to keep talking to them. And also one of the things that I think is really key, we got to have conversations with people going back to what we already know to do, which is really going back to those doors. We have to do that door knocking, and we do that. I think all of us do that. We're knocking on doors, asking people, are you registered? If you're not, why? What are some of the issues that are important to you? Doing those phone banking, really having that personal contact with people is just so key. One thing is, I said, you gotta get on people's front porches and drink some sweet tea and eat some hot grits with them, meet them where they are. We have to be able to do that. One of the things that Ashanti said is, and I went through Emerge as well. And it was an incredible program. So a leader of an organization, but I also understood the process because I'm at the Capitol all the time. I'm talking to the constituents. And I was like, wait a minute, I can lead. And so I put myself out there to run, for office. And the training was just so incredible to the work that I do, and just again interacting with people. But it also made me realize that more people need these kinds of opportunities. And so one of the things that we're doing is, with One Voice and also with the Women's Foundation of Mississippi, we're going to be working with Emerge to do launching our second Mississippi Women in the Lead Institute, where we are providing opportunities for women who may be interested in running for office to get trained, and to and not just them, but maybe some people don't want to run for office. They just want to be a part of the team and helping to lead the staff. And so we're going to be partnering with Emerge and Ashanti to do that, because we understand right now, and Melanie said, women, Black women, we're no longer the secret sauce. We are the sauce. When we go to when we're in our communities, we really are, we're the caregivers of our families, right? We're the caregivers of our families. We caregive for our elders, we caregive for our children, we caregive for our friends. We are caregivers. And so when we are part of the implementation and the formation of the public policy process, what better way than we're able to then have policies to come out based on our own experiences. And so I just think, doing that year round, having year-round conversations with people, and then rooting that in culture. What are some of the things that Black folks love to do? We love basketball. We love a little spades. We love a little bingo. We love a good, dance party. And so these are some of the things that we can do. Again, meeting people where they are is so critical right now to just year-round civic engagement. We cannot skirt around, those issues. One of the things that I like to say is, Black women in particular, we have our paycheck and we turn that paycheck back around in our communities over and over again into that local community. We take that paycheck and we're going to the grocery store and we're patronizing that grocery store. and then that money is turning over. And then we go over to Home Depot if we can afford it and replace, a stove. And then we go over to the gas station and put gas in our car. So that money is flipping over and over again. And let's talk again about the childcare piece. Childcare workers, aren't making a lot of money, but they're the ones that's taking care of our children. And so, just having real conversations with people about what's important to them and then just meeting them where they are. That's what we have to do. That's what we've all have continued to do and will continue to do, even leading up to the election. We like a good dance party, right, Melanie? We like a good dance party.
Absolutely. Look, we have to celebrate, don't we?
We do. We do.
Have to celebrate when we can. This work is so hard for us. And I think that at this point, we're going to move into our Q&A because of time. So I'm going to turn it back over to, I think, Cameron to take us into our Q&A portion. And I believe that you guys can raise your hands. If you have a question, you're going to be muted and then unmuted.
Okay, Cameron may be having some technical difficulties, so while she's getting that together, we do have 2 questions in the chat. Cassandra, I'm going to ask you this question. You touched on this, but could you talk more about the importance of the child tax credit, paid family leave, and childcare, and the broader care practices as ballot priorities, especially noting Black women are the breadwinners, and also caregivers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I started touching on it when the child tax credit went into effect, and it really, I think it needs to go back into effect where we really do have a child tax credit that gives resources back to those families. During the pandemic, it was so critical in just saving people's households. And I know many of us got these calls too. We got calls where people were really struggling just to pay, light bills. And so when they got that extra, whatever it was a month, $300, a month, it made the difference in their budget. And so we need to continue to implement smart policies and practices like that. And Melanie can speak around, paid leave and sick leave. Again, we're caregivers, of our families. And so we got to be able to, have policies that allow us to take off work, but still get paid and not penalizing us for being, caregivers. I got a call this morning from my good friend, Dolores Sewell, who's an incredible advocate, childcare advocate. And she said, Cassandra, when we going to get on the call so we can organize these childcare centers around this election, because we understand childcare are community centers. And so these are some of the issues that's on, on the ballot. And, we launched a campaign a couple of years ago, the power of the pocketbook. Because Black women, we're breadwinners of our families, and so our pocketbooks, those dollars turn over and over and over again in our local communities, but it also impact our state communities. I don't know if Melanie want to speak to any of that.
The one thing I would say when you talked about, I think that all of the elements of what I'm thinking about is how we move from being having the lowest income, how we and especially when it relates to building wealth, generational wealth, because our paychecks aren't our paychecks, right? And you talked about the fact that we turn that dollar over and over and over again. We turn that dollar over and over again in our communities, but in our families. And so it makes it very hard for saving. So when we don't make the income that we should be making for the work that we do, that affects the ability to stretch that paycheck. The other thing are the kinds of policies that you mentioned when it comes to you uh, paid leave and how we over-index in some of those areas. And so when we talk about economic justice, it's a big word, right? That sounds very movement sounding, but what does that really mean? When you break it down, there's all these elements that relate to the ability to have not just I'll say economic security, but also prosperity, right? And that part of it is what I think is also getting back. I can't help it. Get back to the Biden election. It's so very important. Who's saying they want to promote those kinds of policies on a federal level? We have the House and the Senate up, where you have state legislatives up, you have governorships up. How important those things are across the board. So that would be the only thing I'd add.
Thank you. There are some more questions in the chat. Ashanti, I'm going to come to you. This is from Tammy. What is the criteria to run for office? Should you do a self-audio of yourself to address any potential issues that may arise while running for office?
So the criteria to run for office is you should run for office. I think we just have to even ask, why do we think there's that criteria? And it's because we constantly see a certain type of person in elected office. So we think those are the type of people who should be serving in elected office. The biggest criteria is just know what office to run for so you can really focus on what you want to do. If you care about children, it's school board. If you care about water and the environment, be like our good sister Danielle Adams and be on your water board. You have to just make sure that you have to run where you are going to be most effective. Because I will tell you, y'all, some of these men, they just run. They don't even know what the office do. Like one of the stories I heard, this man ran for state house in my home state of Nevada, won, had no idea he was going to have to go up north to Carson City for part of the year. And he's like, oh, I can't do that. And then just resigned the seat. The fool didn't even know the job, but he ran and he won. We are so much better than so many of these people who are running. And even when I get that question, oh, should we do a self-assessment, the risk? I think we have to realize that's just lived experience. That is just life. And so many of the things that we think that will harm us on the campaign trail, those are things that voters are going to be able to relate to because they have gone through the exact same thing. One of the stories I remember is one of our alums, we talk about this in the training program, is, okay, what are they going to come at you with? Let's talk about it. Let's get it out. Let's be ready. And her big thing was she was embarrassed that her home got foreclosed on during the housing crisis. And we said, but how is that a bad thing? Okay, so many people's homes got foreclosed on during the housing crisis. We know that people are taken advantage of. That happened to your neighbors. The biggest thing is that the elected official that you're running against did not care. So you know the impact. That is going to make you so relatable to the people in your district. You feel their pain. You know what it's like. And she ended up beating that guy by 10 points. So definitely look at those things, but I need for us to not see them as this is bad, this is going to harm me. It's life. There are things that other people have gone through in your community. It's going to make you relatable. So focus on running, focus on that race where you want to run and you can make a difference in your community, and own it and get ahead of it. And do not feel bad about living life in this country as a Black woman.
I'm getting some Olivia Poe vibes from Ashanti. It feels like she can fix anything. I definitely want her on my team.
Okay, I think there are two more questions, one in the chat and then one in the Q&A. Does anyone want to come off mute to ask their question? Okay. We'll go to the chat and then back to the Q&A. Michaela asked, in light of Biden's announcement, what should we be doing, asking, or listening for in our communities to organize and engage voters in this election?
I'll go ahead and start. And the biggest thing, you mentioned it, listening. We need to make sure that we're listening to the people in the community because what they're telling us are their concerns. Is it the economy? Is it roads? Is it gun violence? Is it equal pay? That is what we need to be focusing on, and then letting them know not only what the presidential ticket is doing in this case, because we do have incumbents about these issues, things that they're going to be able to do when they get reelected, but also reminding them about the other things that elected officials and candidates are doing in the community, because we just can't make it about the top of the ticket. We need to make sure that we are focusing on these down ballot races as well. For us at Emerge, that's where the majority of our alums are running this cycle, and we need them in office to make the difference, because as I mentioned, they are doing that everyday work. So it's for us to listen to their concerns and being able to address them and letting them know that there are candidates on the ballot that do care. We have to be honest, the disinformation, misinformation, it is already coming fast and swift and quickly, and they target our community because what they want us to think is like, oh, well, we really don't need to vote at the top of the ticket. Nothing gonna change, blah, blah, blah. But we also know that's gonna impact the rest of the ticket, where those people are also doing the work that's gonna impact us. So it's making sure that we're out there, that we're listening, and that we can just not take anything for granted. We know this is bigger than all of the candidates on the ballot. What is at stake? And I'm going to say it, Project 2025. If you haven't heard it, Google it. It will be devastating for us. But one of the things that I say about Project 2025 is that we talk about it as if it's something on the horizon. It isn't. It is already here. There are several ideals in Project 2025 that are already laws in states, particularly southern states, because that's where they go first to see if they can get it to work, and then they want it to spread across the country. So we're already living under some of the impact of Project 2025, and we need to make sure that we're not getting those people in office who want to see it become even more of reality. Yes, Project 2025 is not good at all.
Thank you for that, Ashanti. We still have questions, but we are nearing the end of our time together. I would invite the panelists to answer questions either in the webinar chat or in the Q&A if you can. I want to thank all of you for joining us for this last webinar in our 4-part series covering issues that matter to Black women, to low-wage earners. This conversation, again, was sponsored by Oxfam America's Advocacy Fund. I want to thank our esteemed panel and moderator. Please help us by filling out the survey that will pop up on your screen once this webinar ends. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please look out for an email about upcoming events. Remember, this is really up to us. The leaders need to hear from us about what are the issues that we care about. And we have to ensure that those that are elected into office, as Nashambi said, from dog catcher to the president, that they're advancing justice and equality for all. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, everyone.